Hi folks, Slick Slices here, and today we're going to have a look at the penultimate knife in my Japanese collection, or Japanese series here. I'm saving the best for last in that what we're going to see finally will be what in my mind is probably the pinnacle of knife manufacture in the entire world, certainly in terms of non-custom knives, but this knife here is not far short. This is also a very, very premium knife, but it might be an odd one to find in a Japanese knife collection, as anybody who knows anything about things, or if they've read the description, will see that this is a Falknieven knife, and it's very clearly marked on the back, Sweden. It's very clearly marked all over the box, Sweden. It tells you a bit about the three crowns and being the symbol of Sweden and all of that. But Falknieven knives are manufactured in Japan. All of their knives, fixed blades and folders, all of them. Their sheaths are manufactured in Spain, or at least leather ones and fabric ones. The only thing that's actually made in Sweden are the Zytel plastic scabbards for their fixed blade knives. So it has a place here in the Japanese group, just in the same way as, for example, a little Spyderco is made in Japan, even though it's not really what you would normally consider to be a Japanese knife. But anyway, so I'll just run through a quick description of this knife and where it all fits. It's a lockback knife. Now, the lockback knife probably takes its history back to the Buck 110, which obviously is a very substantial knife. It also has a very substantial history, and I think it's credited as being the first lockback. I don't know if that's absolutely the truth. It certainly isn't the first locking knife, as I keep hearing told all the time, because there were an awful lot of liner locks around long before the Buck 110 came into existence. But it's certainly a pioneer, and it's probably the archetypal lockback. Now, what I like about a lockback, all lockbacks, is that I'm not really ambidextrous, and neither of my hands work very well. My right hand, though, I'm right-handed by nature, but my right hand is pretty much paralysed and has been for the last 17 years. So I mix things up. Sometimes I use my left hand, but I'm not natural. It doesn't feel natural to be using my left hand. Sometimes it feels more natural to use my right hand, but it's a bit like my right hand's a bit like those of you who are British will remember Action Man back in the 70s. They brought out gripping hands. And gripping hands were rubber hands that you had to force them open, put the gun or the knife or the axe or whatever it was into his hand, and then it would hold on to it. And then the fingers used to break off because they weren't as flexible as they perhaps could have been. You had to put little white plastic cups on them when you were dressing him, so otherwise his fingers got caught on the clothes. But my right hand is a bit like that. I don't, unfortunately, have a white plastic cup for dressing. I just have to work very hard at it. But anyway, that's the thing about the lockback is that it is pretty ambidextrous. There's no clips, the lock's in the middle. There's no problems with frame lock designs and things where when you try to fold them and you're left-handed, you have to kind of maneuver the knife around and push the lock, and then the blade falls across your thumb and all of that sort of nonsense. There just isn't any of that. It's nice and simple and straightforward. So I like that. What the downside, or the one lack of ambidextrosity of a lockback, is that you've got a nail nick to open it, and the nail nick is generally found on one side, not the other. Now there are ways round that, and this Mazarin has its way around it, and that is to not put a nail nick on the knife at all, and you simply open it by pinching the blade, which is all very well for most people. It's a little bit of a thing for me because I don't have much pinch strength. But that's one way around it, and in some ways it's quite an elegant way around it. And if you're dealing with the sort of like a pruner blade or something very wide, then that works actually extremely well. It would have worked brilliantly on Arthur Brem's QSP work knife because, again, you've got lots of blade to grip. You don't need the nail nick, not in any shape or form. Just easy to open. What Falknieven have done to get around that and make this a truly ambidextrous knife is that you have the nail nick on one side and on the other. Now, there are other companies that have done that. SOG did it with the Terminus, for example, and I'm sure there are other companies out there that do it regularly. But Fallkniven, in a way, take it a little bit further because normally you have a show knife to a knife, and then a show side to a knife, rather, and then you have the reverse side. Now, if you're right-handed and the knife's in your hand, you're showing the show side and you're seeing the show side, and that's got the writing on it and it's got the shield. Well, Fallkniven have taken that one stage further is that when you turn it over, you've got a show side on the other side. You don't have the writing on the blade, but I certainly don't miss that. But you do have the nail nick and you do have the shield. Personally, I'd probably rather we had no shields. That would be a better solution to me, in the same way that Moki have done with the Pliant and the Kronos and almost all of their knives. They have no show side. Incidentally, I never said it when they had the Moki knives. They do a really nice mother of pearl inlaid knife, and it has the mother of pearl inlays on both sides, which is it's one that will be in my collection one day, but it ain't cheap, and we'll not be picking too many of these up too regularly. It's also a lockback. So anyway, I'm very fond of this as a lockback design. It really suits me and my situation, my predicament, if you like. Now, in terms of the knife and what makes this particularly premium, well, if I start at the back end, it's a mid-lock design. Nothing particularly special in that, but I just happen to like it. It's got the little gold shield, and it's got them on both sides, and it's reasonably well fitted. It's a pinned together design. I always like pins. I know you can't take a pinned knife to bits to service it and so forth, but I just think it looks nicer and neater, particularly when you've got the pivot hidden in the bolster. So it's a pinned design. It's made of desert iron. The covers are made of desert ironwood, but a very premium wood. I don't think this is the best desert ironwood. I certainly have better desert ironwood in my collection, particularly some of the Tailor's Eyewitness knives, but it's very nice anyway. It's got a nice bit of grain to it. It's very hard wood, very solid and dense. Can be a bit brittle, so that's one thing you have to be a little bit careful of. That's one knife, it's JE Made, I think, have said they're going to stop using desert ironwood for inlays because they find it too brittle and they have a too high failure rate when manufacturing. So that's a shame. I like it. It's got a steel frame, so we've got two steel liners. There's a backspacer effectively in steel in here, and then with a steel spring. I don't know what the steel is for the handle materials and spring materials, but it's certainly good quality. It's nice. There's a brush finish to this bolster. It's kind of almost a Barlow-esque long bolster, which I like. I mean, again, with the Moki, we've got the same long bolsters. But what really sets this knife ahead is the steel. Normally in Japanese knives, you get things like VG10, Oz 8, sometimes Oz 6 even. Obviously, when we get to the Rocksteads, we'll see some not exotic steels, but unusual steels used in an unusual way. But this one here is 3G steel. Now, it's not all 3G steel. The cutting edge is 3G, which is a powder metallurgical steel. So, yeah. Can't remember my words today, but a powdered metal anyway, steel, which is where you have a very, very uniform chemical structure to the steel, which it means you don't have different types of, or different hardnesses and so forth throughout the steel. It's very, very uniform. 3G steel is, however, a little on the brittle side. This is a Japanese trait, and it's very much, when you go back to the Tamahagane and things like that, they always go for brittle blades. It's just a fact of life with Japan. But they also are quite good at doing what are known as sanmai steels, or sandwich steels. So in this case here, we have VG2, which is a relatively soft steel encasing the hard steel 3G, and the same on the other side. Now you can see, if I can get the light anything like right, you might be able to see that silver line as it transitions from one steel to the other. We have the same on this side, slightly wider on this side, slightly shallower on the other. I think that's a function of hand grinding. You don't have to be very far out for that to grow or shrink, but I actually quite like that because it does show that it is hand ground and not machine ground. The blade feels very slightly convex. I'm not absolutely sure. I think it is a convex blade, but it's not an appleseed edge. It does have a final bevel at the edge. So this 3G steel is able to be heat treated to a very high hardness, in this case about 62, which is similar to the M4 that Benchmade use on the bailout and other M4 knives. It's not as hard as the tool steels that Rockstead use, but it's about as hard as you can go without having to do some of the very special treatments that Rockstead, for example, use on their knives. So it is very premium. This is not a cheap knife. It's not in the realm of the Rocksteads, not by any means, but for a small pocket folder, it's the price is up there. But I really like it. I mean, I think it would be a great everyday carry knife. In terms of size, we've got a blade length of just under 3 inches, a cutting edge of 2 5/8, overall length 6.5, handles just north of 3 5/8, something like that. It's relatively slim in the pocket, nice and easy to carry, and would be a perfect everyday carry knife. You know, this would sit alongside my Kaiser Zip Slip as being a good pocket-sized carry knife. Very similar in size. The Zip Slip's got a slightly longer handle, a slightly shorter cutting edge because of the finger choil, but generally speaking, overall similar proportions. This is UK legal, of course, because it's slip joint with no lock. And a very nice one at that, one of my favourites. This, of course, has a lockback and is therefore not legal to carry in the UK, which is just a crying shame because this would be a perfect everyday carry knife. Slightly bigger than I used to carry when I was, when you were allowed to carry lock knives. I used to have one with a 2-inch blade, which again was Japanese, a silver turn, and somewhere along the line it's just gone. One day I will find it and there'll be an addendum to this series, but don't hold your breath. It's been missing now for several years, and I can't think. I know I had it before I went into hospital 17 years ago, so it'll be in a bag or a pocket or something somewhere, and it will turn up. I certainly haven't thrown it away. Anyway, that's all really I have to say about this. It's a beautiful little, high quality, well machined, everyday carry knife that you can't carry in the UK. Anyway, if you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of this stuff, there's certainly one more video in this series, and then there'll be other dives coming along after that. Please subscribe, and remember to ring the bell if you want notifications. Thank you very much. Bye.